This time on Road to Nationals, I realised just how unfit I really am.
Absolutely knackered.
Dean gives me some honest truths.
And you're not a rallier. We need you here as the winners, which means being early.
And I learn how to play the guitar.
Why am I so slow?
Yes, for some crazy reason, I have decided to enter the English Senior National Championships in 6 months' time. So what actually is this series? Well, I'm going to be doing an episode every month building up to the Nationals, giving you an outline of my training, showing you what I'm doing, but hopefully giving you a variety of new ways and different things you can add to your training to hopefully improve your game. And as a little bonus, I'm actually going to bring you along to my tournaments to give you an insight into what happens on tournament day and different things you can do to make sure you can get your best performance. Every episode is going to have a different theme, from nutrition to strength and conditioning, all the way through to how to build your own training program. And that's what this first episode is going to be on. We're going to look at how we're going to qualify for the Nationals, how we can build a training program, and we're going to start with some training. So first things first, how do I actually qualify for the English National Badminton Championships? That's going to be my most important thing, because if I don't qualify, I can't play. So when it comes to qualification, we're looking at two different metrics. The first one, and the one they prioritize, is player grading. Now, player grading is a system from A down to K, and you're graded on the ability of players you beat. So if you are beating high level players, your grading is going to be higher. For example, if you're a C graded player and you start beating lots of B graded players, your grading moves up. So for qualification, they'll first take as many A graded players who enter. So for example, if there's 32 places and there's 32 A grade players, they will all get in. Now, this is the good news for me, because thankfully with all the previous playing I've done, I am an A graded player, which means I will have a higher priority of getting into the event. But unfortunately, there's often more A graded players entering than there are spaces. And then it comes down to the second metric for qualification, which is player ranking. And this is where the bad news starts kicking in. So if we go to my Badminton England profile and look on my page and have a look at my ranking, as you can see, I currently don't actually even have a ranking. It's been so long since I last played a tournament, I'm off the ranking system, which means I'm gonna have to get out there, get playing some tournaments to hopefully get my ranking up, probably into the top 40 in England, to give myself the best chance of qualifying. So we now know how I can qualify for the National Badminton Championships. Obviously, the main thing I need to focus on now is playing tournaments. So I need to start building a tournament plan, and this is how I'm going to do it. Now, tournament plans are super important, and we don't want to just be chucking tournaments into our plan. What we want to do is have a strategy. Now, when I plan my tournaments, I split them into two sections: performance and development. Performance are going to be tournaments where I'm trying to play at my absolute highest level. I'll taper down for those events. I'll make sure everything in my training is on point leading up to that event. And I'm only going to have 3 or 4 of those a year. They might be your national championships. Now, on the other side, I have development. Now, those are tournaments where I'm going to be more focusing on adding strategies I've been working on in training, making sure my tactics are right, and maybe trying to implement some different things I've been working on. Now, I won't be tapering down for those. I'll be training through those because they're at a lower priority. And I find this is so important in your tournament plan, because we want a solid block of training, which we won't get if we taper down for every event. Now, because I only have 6 months leading up to Nationals, I'm going to be aiming for about 6 tournaments. 2 of those will be performance tournaments, 1 being Nationals, and then I'm going to try and add a performance event about halfway through those 6 months, just to see how my training's going and if I'm going in the right direction. So how do tournaments actually work in England? Well, we have 4 different tiers. The highest tier is gold, and that's the highest level tournament you can play in England bar the national championships. Then we have silver, bronze, and copper, sometimes known as tier 4. Now, for each of those grades, there are different grading restrictions to ensure that an appropriate level player is playing in those events, which means I'm actually restricted to only playing gold and silver events. Now let's start adding some tournaments into my tournament plan. Now, obviously we have the national championships in February, and that's obviously going to be in my performance section. I'll then have another gold tournament, which is in Middlesex, which is about 3 months in, and that's going to be my other performance tournament. And they're going to be my 2 performance events I'm going to play. Now, currently on the tournament schedule, there aren't actually that many tournaments that I can play in this 6 months out currently. So I'm only restricted currently to 1 more event I will play, which is in December in Wiltshire. That's a silver event, and that will definitely be a development tournament for me. And what I'll be doing is looking out for more events in my area that I can play to make sure I play enough events to still qualify. So we've looked at qualification, we've started to build a tournament plan, and now the big one, we've got to start on this training plan. Now, before we even start mapping out how my training is going to be week to week, we need to understand what I'm going to be focusing on, what is going to be part of my training. So we're going to go chat to my Badminton Zone partner, who was actually my old coach, to get some ideas and give me a direction for my training. So Dean, I need some real honest truths here. What do I need to work on?
So I'd probably say number 1, you've obviously done your PT course recently, and a goal of yours was obviously to bulk up in the gym, which we now need to lose a lot of and start to be a little bit more fitness based again, obviously for the singles, very physical game, and just want to be a little bit quicker around the court.
Yeah, not quite fit enough for this.
So number 2, probably say movement, and particularly speed of movement. Davison once got very good deception, some good slices overhead, but probably want to get in a position to play them as much as we possibly can, rather than feel like we're taking the shuttle too late.
Yeah, definitely. I think as you move up the sort of standard and singles, the game just naturally gets quicker and quicker, and you've got to try and keep up with that. Okay, and hit me with the final one.
So I'd probably say rear court attack, but particularly pace in the attack. You know, you've got some very good slice overhead, but sometimes maybe overuse them, and kind of opponents start to pick them up a little bit more than they would do if we could have a bit of a hard smash just to supplement the slices a little bit more.
Definitely, definitely. So as you can see, I've got quite a lot to work on, but this gives me a good direction of how to start my weekly training plan. Now, first things first, I am only going to be training Monday to Friday. The reason for this is I'll have tournaments at the weekend, I might have social events, and if I leave the weekend free, it means if I unfortunately miss a training day, I can just easily slot it in at the weekend if I have time. So let's start with my hitting sessions. So when it comes to hitting, I don't have access to endless courts or training partners, so I'm going to be aiming for a maximum of 3 hitting sessions a week, which is going to be on a Wednesday, a Thursday and Friday. That's purely because that's the only time I can get some courts. And within these 3 hitting sessions, I'm going to be aiming for a match play session, a multi-feed session, and a routine-based session. I want to try and keep this as relatable to you guys as possible, because most of us are either working full-time or in education. We don't have that accessibility that a full-time player would have. Now let's look at my off-court stuff, and starting with the gym, I'm going to be aiming to go in the gym on a Monday, a Tuesday and a Thursday. Now obviously one of those days is going to overlap with my hitting sessions, and that's okay. I just have to make that work because I don't have that endless time a full-time player would have. Within these gym sessions, I'll be adding in my endurance work as well. Just because I'm there already, I don't want to add an endurance session sometime else in the week where I'm having to go back and forth constantly. It just doesn't suit my work. And finally, the one I'm going to get down on paper is my mobility sessions. And I'm going to be aiming to do one of those every single day. They're only going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to slot it in either just as I get up or just before I go to bed to make sure I get it done. I always find if I get it down on paper, I'm more likely to do it. Yes, I know it's the boring stuff, but it's going to massively improve my on-court movement and reduce my chances of getting injured. Now, 2 important things to take note. This training plan for me, yes, it's not the absolute ideal training plan. It's not what I would give to a full-time player because they have more accessibility and they have more time. But what I've tried to do is fit this all in around my current lifestyle. And secondly, I'm not just hopping in and going straight into this full training plan. I've allowed myself to build up my training for about 3 weeks, because if we dramatically increase the intensity of our training, there's a massive chance we will get injured. So we've looked at how we're going to qualify. We've started building a tournament plan and we've got a training plan to work through. So the only thing now, let's start the training. Cue the montage.
Well, that is it. That's the end of episode 1 of the Road to Nationals. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss all the future episodes. And in next month's episode, I'm going to be taking you to my first tournament back, and we're going to be delving into a variety of off-court training strategies to help you improve your game.